Did you say you were born in Lampasas?
Born in Lampasas, Texas. January the 11th, 1915.
So, how long have you lived here in Sachse?
Well, I've lived here most of my life at Pleasant Valley. Now, I lived in Garland. One time I lived 6 years over on Apache, and then I lived about, I imagine close to 20 years on Glenbrook in Garland. But all the rest of the time I live down on the corner. My nephew lives down there now, down on Pleasant Valley and Merrick. That's where I lived a long time.
Did you have a store there?
What?
Did you have a store?
I ran that old store, and I wasn't selling groceries on a credit, and when they said they'd pay me Saturday, I didn't know which Saturday it was going to be. Saturday never did come, and I saw I wasn't doing any good in that, and I got in the car business. I was a licensed car dealer for about 20 years. And then I got out of that and got to going to auction sales and buying farm machinery and repairing it and settling it. That's what I wound up doing. I enjoyed that. That car business, I don't think I'd have lived this long if I'd stayed in the car business. That's a rough business.
Is it? Where was your shop?
Huh?
Where was your auto place? Where was your store?
Up there at Pleasant Valley, on Pleasant Valley and Merrick. See, I had the corner right there. I had a 2-acre corner on Pleasant Valley, and I lived where that little house is, where my nephew lives there now. And I had a 2-acre, and I had the old store there. The store belonged to my grandfather. He moved from Lampasas up here and ran the old store. You got some expensive equipment. You got a lot of money tied up in that.
Oh, it's not so bad. It's fun. So what's your full name? Jack McClain?
Huh?
What is your name? Your whole name?
My full name?
Yes, sir.
My father's name was Leslie, and my full name is Maurice Leslie. But my nickname's Jack, and that's what everybody knows me for.
Oh.
Jack McClain.
And you were born on January the
11th, 1915.
Oh my goodness.
I was 100 years old, January the 11th, and I had a friend, David Earl. He used to live over on Wells Road, and he moved up to Farmersville, and for about 20 years he always brings pie and ice cream for my birthday.
Oh.
And I thought he wasn't going to come this time, but he waited till the ball game. It was on Sunday. He waited till the ball game was over, and he came. He had another friend that lived at Van Alstyne, and I sold him several pieces of machinery, and they both came and brought me pie and ice cream.
Oh, that's nice.
And Teresa Abney, that goes to the church down here, her husband Perry, his great-grandfather, Greeley Compton was my daddy's first cousin. So we're about fifth cousins. That's not very much, but we're related. The Compton, my grandmother Sarah Compton, when she was young, 3 families came from Monroe County, Kentucky on a wagon train and settled at Pleasant Valley. The Nelsons and the Comptons and the Kirbys. And my great-grandmother was a Kirby, and Rowlett's full of Kirbys down there. There's a Kirby Road down there.
Yeah, I've seen that.
But my grandfather on my daddy's side came from Pennsylvania. His name was Thomas Jackson McClain. He came from Pennsylvania. But they came on a wagon train from Kentucky.
When did they come down?
What?
When did they come? Do you know? What year?
No, I don't know what year. My grandmother was a young woman.
Oh.
And she married Thomas Jackson McClain. And he ran the old store there. See that picture up there? There's an old 2-story store. That's the original store.
Yeah, okay. And that was at the corner of Merritt and Pleasant Valley, wasn't it?
I was working. Times were hard. You can't realize how hard times were back in those days.
What years was that?
What?
What year was that? What time?
Well, when I got out of high school in Garland in 1931. I graduated. I was 16 years old. And I went to Drones Business College in Dallas, and times were so hard that an experienced person in that profession couldn't get a job, and a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid wasn't about to get a job. And so I finally got I worked when I was 11 years old. My cousin lived on the corner up above where I lived, and I plowed with 2 mules and plowed cotton from daylight till dark for $1 a day. That's what I made. And I got me a good job. There was a store over there that's still there, roast feed and it was roast feed and grocery back in those days.
Oh, I bet.
I got me a job, $1.50 a day, $9 a week. That was a good job.
That place is still there.
And every time I started to take a job, I compared it to that $1.50. If it wasn't any harder than that, and didn't pay and paid any more, well, I thought it was a good job.
Well, that roach feed is still there.
They're still there. They don't sell groceries anymore.
No.
But he sold wholesale and retail groceries. I worked from daylight till dark and 10 o'clock on Saturday night for $1.50 a day. You just can't realize how hard times were. I should have put my teeth in if you're going to take pictures.
Oh, we're fine.
I got a plate, but I don't like to wear it.
Oh, that's fine.
I used to when somebody came, I ran and put it in my mouth, and I don't do it anymore.
So you must have been in one of the first classes from Garland High School.
What?
When you went to Garland High School?
I went to Garland High School. I had a school bus. I started out in grammar school in a little two-room schoolhouse up on Merritt Road and Merritt Road and let's see, what was that other road? It's up in the corner there on Merritt Road. There's a two-room schoolhouse. That's where I started in grammar school. And they consolidated the schools and sent all the high school to Garland, to the Garland school, and they had school buses. They bused the country kids to Garland school. And even at that, when I graduated in 1931, I can count up about 35 people in my graduating class. That included the people from Sachse and Liberty Grove and all around the country. That's how scarcely populated the country was.
Huh.
Garland, city of Garland was just a little country town. There wasn't any industry there. The first industry that came there was a Craddock Pickle Factory and Resistol Hat Factory. And those two places. And the country people got jobs and things began to pick up. That was about the time the war started. But Garland was just a country town. That's all it was. You can't imagine how it's grown.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where all those people came from. When the war started, they had defense plants in Garland. And the people came here from everywhere and worked in the defense plants. There was 2 or 3 defense plants that made war materials. And that's when Garland started building up. And I said, I always thought when the war's over, those people would go back home and Garland would turn back to a country town, but it didn't.
No,
they stayed.
Yeah.
They didn't go home. There wasn't nothing at home for them to go. They lived out in the rural areas of Texas.
Well, what did you do after Roach Feed? You went to when you got out of high school, you went to work for Roach. When you got out of high school, you went to work for Roach Feed and grocery.
Yeah, I got to work for him. I couldn't get a job. Times were too hard. Inexperienced bookkeeper couldn't get a job. And I worked for Roach. And my grandfather ran the old store on my mother's side, my grandfather Pearson. And he got sick. And he was spitting up blood. And the doctor thought he had, back in those days they didn't have any way to diagnose anything. The doctor said he had tuberculosis, he had to get out of the store. So he got out of the store, and I said, well, I believe I can make $1.50 a day running the store. And I quit the Roach Feed and Seed grocery and started running the old store. And I was selling groceries on the credit, and they wasn't paying. And I got in the automobile business, and I got to making a little money in the automobile business. But that's a tough business.
What kind of cars did you sell?
Huh?
What kind of cars did you?
Oh, I just sold secondhand. I went to auction sales. They had wholesale auction, 2 auction sales in Dallas, one in Oak Cliff and one on Main Street in Dallas. And I'd go there and buy those good cars, and the bank would finance them. And the car dealers, I bought their old second-hand trade-ins, old cheap cars, and I sold them on a credit and carried the note myself. That was kind of tough business. They run off with your car and tired up, you'd have to take your record and go get it. If I'd have stayed in the car business, I wouldn't have lived to be 100 years old. I don't think. And I like that auction sale. And up at Howe, you know where that is? It's close to Sherman on 75. They had a Southwest auction, farm auction sale every Wednesday. It was the largest auction sale in Texas. And I'd go up there and buy farm machinery that needed repairing, and I repaired that and sold it. And that's what I wound up doing till I farmed. I had a 81-acre farm down there on Merritt Road in Pleasant Valley, and I bought a second-hand hay baler to bale my own hay. And the people, they said, I want you to bale my hay. And I started baling the hay, and I liked it. And I made pretty good money back in those days. And the old hay baler was worn out, and I said, if I'm going to bale hay, I got to have a better hay baler. So I went and bought a new hay baler, and I farmed and had cattle on that 81 acres. And I baled hay for the public, and farmed and raised hay. I had this rented out here, 40 acres, and my brother and I sold it in hay and baled it. I baled for the public. I baled about 1 million bales of hay.
I bet.
About 1 million bales.
How many brothers and sisters?
Huh?
Brothers and sisters. Brothers and sisters? Do you have brothers and...
I had one brother, Donald McClain. He was 6 years younger than I.
No sisters?
No, I just had one brother. He was born in the land. My mother went back down there to have him where my grandmother, she was almost like a doctor. She could just about do what a doctor could do. A doctor couldn't do much back in those days. They didn't have any way to test you or diagnose you. No x-rays or nothing like that. Wasn't anything like that. See, I came up the hard way. I was raised on a farm. We didn't have any electricity. We didn't have any running water. We didn't have we bathed in a wash tub and had a wash pot out in the yard and built a fire and washed the clothes in the wash pot and rubbed them on a rubbing board. That's the way I was raised up. And the Depression came, and people lived hard. I tell you, we always had plenty to eat because you couldn't buy it, but you could raise it. We killed about 3 hogs every winter. My daddy would wait till the coldest day in the day and kill hogs, about 3 hogs, cut the meat up and store it in a box, cure it, and then hang it up in the smokehouse. We didn't smoke it, but we called it the smokehouse. And that meat would keep the way up in the summer. And we'd have that ham and bacon, and we had a sausage grinder. You grind the meat and make sausage, hang the sausage up, put them in the sacks, hang the sausage up in the smokehouse, and they'd keep. and if you didn't raise it, you just didn't have it. We raised chickens and turkeys, and had, I tell you what, you don't know what chicken tastes like unless you take one that's picked up off the yard and cook him in hog lard. I mean, that's good. Make that cream gravy.
Tastes good, huh? Do you have any children?
Huh?
Do you have any children?
I never did marry.
Oh.
I was diagnosed when I was about 18 years old. I was diagnosed with a heart stenosis of the heart valve, and I was afraid. I had a girlfriend, but I was afraid I'd get where I couldn't make a living. And the doctor, the Garland doctor, scared me to death. He said, "You can't do hard work, you got to get," he just made an invalid out of me. And I finally went to a heart specialist in Dallas. He said, "You could live to be 100 years old."
You did?
And he was right.
That's right.
But I had bypass surgery when I was 93. I had a heart attack, had bypass surgery. And the old Dr. Baker, I was 93, he said, "I can give you 10 years. I said, "Well, I'll be 103. So I got 3 more years to go.
Oh, yeah. Is your brother still living?
Huh?
Is your brother
No,
still?
my brother, he went to that old, he had Parkinson's disease. And the medicine was so expensive that he went to the Veterans Hospital in Dallas because they'd furnish that medicine free and everything. And he had colon cancer. And they operated and he was doing fine and going to be all right. And they let him catch pneumonia. And he died with pneumonia.
Wow.
And I had a man that kept bees up here. He raised honey and sold it up there on the corner. And he went to that here about 6 months ago. He went to that hospital and they let him catch pneumonia and die. They ought to close that thing up.
Oh, that's terrible. That's terrible. Do you have any other relatives here in the area?
What?
Do you have any other family here in the area? Cousins or uncle?
I don't have any relatives here. I had some my mother had one brother. He lived down at Lampasas and finally moved to a little old place called Proctor. And he had about 7 children. And they're all dead, I guess. I guess I'm the only grandchild living, I imagine. I think they all are dead. All of my daddies. My daddy was the youngest of the children, and all of my cousins on my daddy's side, they're dead. So I'm probably the only grandchild living.
Oh. What did you do besides bale hay? You had your hay.
Huh?
You had hay. You baled hay, you said, and what else did you have out there?
What?
You said that you baled hay?
Yeah, I
And
baled hay and bought farm machinery that needed repairing out of the auction sales. I went to auction sales, farm sales everywhere. I went to auction sales as far as down in Bosque County. You know where that is?
Uh-huh.
I've been down there, went down there to auction sales. I built a 19-foot trailer that would haul anything. And I'd load that trailer up with farm machinery and bring it down here, and I repair it. And my brother and I baled hay, and I'd try it out and be sure I had it working good. And when people come to buy it, I'd say it's in good condition and it'll do what it's supposed to. And I didn't have any trouble selling it. I sold a lot of stuff that went to Mexico.
Huh.
Those Mexicans come up here and buy it. And they always had money, cash money. They didn't have any problem about selling it to them. They were easy to deal with. They didn't try to Jew you down or anything. They bought it and carried it to Mexico. But I enjoyed that. You know, some people like to restore automobiles. It's kind of a hobby, and that's kind of the way I was. I'd buy something up there and I'd say, well, it'd be cheap because it needed repair. I'd say, I can fix that. And I'd buy it cheap and bring it home and fix it and make a lot of money off of it. I made a lot of money off of it.
Well, that's all right.
I finally got where I couldn't see. I have macular degeneration. My brother had macular degeneration. And I got side vision, but I don't have any central vision.
Huh.
I see that away. If I look at that clock, I can't look straight at it. I just see a blank thing. But I can look at it sideways, and I can tell it's 5 minutes after 11 there.
Right, yeah. That's right.
But I've had that. I had to quit driving. Most people, when they get old, their family has to take their car away from them. But I had sense enough to know when I got where I couldn't see to quit driving. And I canceled the insurance on my car.
Well, that's a wise.
But that old macular degeneration, it's bad. I try to look at television. I got this thing right here, and I can kind of see the television, and I don't hear it very well. I guess you know that I had it turned up real high.
That's all right.
But I can't hear, can't see. My legs are getting bad. I have to use these walkers. I'd have been better off if I'd have died about 10 or 12 years ago.
Oh my, well, you've seen a lot happen, haven't you?
Huh?
You have seen a lot happen. A lot, my goodness. The church over here, have you watched the church be built, the North Place Church? That's pretty.
That's a big church.
Yeah.
You know that Assembly of God in Sachse. I can remember when they met in a tent. They didn't have a building. And the preachers weren't educated. One of the best preachers that ever lived was Sylvester McMullins. He was a 7th grade dropout. And he is one of the best preachers that you ever heard in your life.
What church was he with?
Huh?
What church?
The Assembly of God, Sachse Assembly of God. And my folks were all Baptists, but there wasn't any Baptists here, and you didn't go, back in those days, you didn't have much transportation. I remember when we didn't even have a car. I'll go back that far. I remember if you could see close, you see an old hitch rack on that
Picture? Yeah.
picture up there at that was the Presbyterian church sitting on this side. There's an old hitch rack. I remember when they came in wagons and buggies. I remember riding in a buggy. And I remember if we had to have anything in town, we hitched up the team, two horses, and went to Garland in a wagon. I'll go back that far. And the first car my father had was a Hupmobile. It didn't have a battery and didn't have a starter. You had to crank it. Had a magneto. You had to crank it.
Uh-huh.
That's the first car my father had. Hupmobile.
What church did you guys go to? Did you go to the?
Huh?
What church did you guys go to?
I went to the Methodist church there. There was a Presbyterian and a Methodist, and my folks were all Baptist, but you'd have to go to Garland to go to the Baptist church. And I went to the Flooded Valley Church because I could walk. We lived on the corner down there in a big old frame house, and lived this first corner down here. You know where those two houses, brick houses are down there?
Uh-huh.
I lived in a big old frame house. That's where I was raised up. And I walked to Pleasant Valley School up there on Merritt, and I can't think of that other, what's that other road that goes to Garland? Merritt Road and,
Levon Drive?
huh?
Highway 78? Levon Drive?
There's Merritt Road and
Castle?
went to Garland.
Castle?
Uh,
Castle Drive? Is it Castle?
huh?
Is it Castle?
Yeah, Castle, I guess that's what it was. And there's a two-room school, and back in those days there wasn't any pavement, the roads were mud. And when you got to school, you looked like a mud ball. You'd walk, if it rained weather, the wagons and the Model T Fords had cut deep ruts on that old mud road, and you had to walk down that mud road to get to school. And your shoes were muddy, and sometimes to go over your shoe top, that old black mud.
Oh.
That's where I went to Pleasant Valley School. And I went to Pleasant Valley School till I got in the 7th grade, and went to Garland in the 7th grade, and I went to high school, rode the school bus. They had 3 school buses, a Sachse and Rowlett and Reinhardt. There's a place called Reinhardt between here and Dallas, and they bused the school kids to what they call a consolidated schools, and taught them at Garland. And it was just one school in Garland. It was a 2-story. The bottom was the grammar school, and the top story was the high school. I graduated when I was 16 years old.
What other churches were out here?
Huh?
What other churches were out here?
The Presbyterian church and the Methodist church. That was the only 2 churches. And the Presbyterian, they went to Garland and closed it up. And the Methodists bought. It was a lot better building. The original building burned down, and they built a new building. And the Pleasant Valley Church was old, and a big old tall. You could see how tall it was there. And they tore it down and moved that, bought that Presbyterian church and moved it down there on where the old big church was. It was a better church. The old Methodist church had 2 doors in the front, and one of the doors had bullet holes in it where there was a gun battle.
Oh,
They had a gun battle at the church, and two men got killed.
oh my. Didn't like the preaching, huh?
One of them was Garrison, and one of them was Jones. And two of them got killed, and the other got shot in the leg and broke his leg. And now that was before my time.
Oh.
That was way back there. That's when they rode horses to church. Didn't have cars. But that Presbyterian church just had two sets of pews. It wasn't near as big as that first church, but the old first church was in bad repair. And that church was a real nice church. It had stained glass windows.
Oh.
But when they broke some of the lights out, and they replaced those windows, I wish they'd have replaced them with stained glass, but they didn't do it.
You're a member of the Methodist Church, aren't you?
Huh?
Aren't you a member of the Methodist Church?
What?
Aren't you a member of the Methodist?
Never was a member. I never did join the church, but I went to it, and they treated me just like a member. I taught a Sunday school class there about 30 years.
Oh.
I'd say, you ought to get a member, and they'd say, no, you teach the Bible, and they wouldn't let me quit. I studied. I've got a bookcase over there full of books on the Bible, commentaries and stuff, you know. And I took it seriously. I thought I had an obligation to try to teach the Bible, and they wouldn't let me quit. I taught it to the old folks. I taught the old folks class, and
Well, you probably knew the Merritt, Eldon Merritt, and Mr. and Mrs. Merritt, Eldon Merritt. Eldon Merritt. Did you know him?
Who?
Eldon Merritt.
Eldon?
Merritt.
Eldon?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, see, Bob Merritt had three boys, and he lived there on Merritt Road and up on the corner there. He was a big farmer, one of the best farmers in this country. He was a member of the Pleasant Valley Church, Bob Merritt. And Kathy Merritt, Eldon was her husband. And he had an aneurysm, and his artery busted, and he bled to death in about 2 minutes. He wasn't too old.
Yeah, I knew him.
Now, Thomas Merritt was his brother. Thomas was 12 years younger than I, and Thomas died about 2 years ago, a year or two ago. And they were good friends of mine. Bob Merritt and his wife, they were about 12 years younger than I, but my mother, she lived with me. My father got killed on this, a car ran over him right here on this hill, killed him. And she was a good friend of Merritt's wife, and we traveled together. We went to Arkansas every year, and we went to Colorado and New Mexico. We were real good. We were good friends, and the Merritt boys. When I ran the old store, I I got in the car business and I hired a man to run the store. And he'd close up about dark, and I'd eat my supper and I'd go out there and stay open till about 10 o'clock. And always had visitors come. And those boys, those two boys, Eldon and Thomas, they came to the store every night. Every night they come to the store and stayed till bedtime. And they were good friends of mine. And they were, Bob Merritt, he farmed, he was a big farmer. I imagine he farmed, I'd say, at least 1,000 acres. Rented, you know. And he was one of the best farmers in the country. And he taught those boys to work. When they were little kids, they drove those John Deere tractors. And they were expert mechanics. They were real smart. Eldon worked for a big machinery. He could run drag lines and bulldoze. They got in the bulldozer business, and they bulldozed timber down in East Texas and dug ponds. And that's the way they made a living for years and years. Oh. They were hard workers. They were you know, if you raise a kid up to work, he'll work. If you don't raise him up to work, he won't work when he gets old, when he gets grown.
Yeah.
But if he's raised up to work, he don't mind working. They worked. They were good workers. They were good mechanics.
Do you know any of the Roan family?
Huh?
Roan family, Tommy Roan and Bobby Roan? The Roan family?
Huh?
The Roan family? Roan?
Roan.
Roan.
Roan?
Roan, R-O-A-N, Roan.
Huh?
Tommy Roan.
Bobby Roan. He played, we used to play dominoes up at the old store. Bobby Roan played dominoes up there. He started out working at the bank in Garland. And he got in the real estate business. He's got a real estate place down at Rowlett. There's lots of Roans in Rowlett. A bunch of them. And Bobby Roan married a girl, Lola Bell Walker and Woodrow Walker. They were members of that church, two of the best people I ever knew. And Bobby Roan married their daughter. She was a nice girl. And Bobby Roan, he built houses a while, and then he got in the real estate sales business. And he's got an office in Rowlett. But he played dominoes up at the store. He had his cell phone, and he was always getting calls on it. He'd be playing dominoes and have to wait for him to talk on the telephone. I sold him a lot of farm machinery. He farmed, and I sold him a lot of farm machinery. Most of the people I sold farm machinery to was people like Bobby Roan. They make a living something else, and they farmed as a hobby. And they had money. A man farming, making money farming, he didn't have much money, because you didn't make much money farming. Yeah. You had to farm on and have another business to make a living. They didn't raise anything but cotton here in this country for a long time. And cotton got down to a nickel a pound. And time you paid, if you didn't have a family to pick it, time you paid the picking and the ginning and everything, you didn't have anything left.
Well,
we, back in those days, you had to register your car the first of the year. Everybody registered the first of the year. Well, you couldn't borrow any money till you put in a cotton crop and got up a crop of cotton. Then you could go back and after you got a crop of cotton growing, you could go to the bank and mortgage your cotton crop and get money. And we'd have to wait till my daddy, we'd have the old card set up. We didn't have the money January. And we'd have to wait till he could go to the bank and borrow the money and get the money to register the car. And then you lived on that money you borrowed from the bank, and the first bale of cotton you got out, you had to go and pay off the mortgage. That's the way people lived. And the people that, I don't know how they lived, the people that worked on the farm, wages was just $1 a day. And some people just got 75 cents. Now imagine having to live on that. In the winter time, there wasn't nothing to do. And I don't know how in the world, I know they went hungry. Bill Poovey had 7 kids, or I believe he had 9 kids. And he had a bunch of kids. And he worked on the farm. And he worked those kids on the farm, and they could pick a bale of cotton a day when cotton picking time came. But in the winter time, they didn't have any money. And his oldest daughter was in my Sunday school class. And I said, well, we didn't have any money, but I said, we always had plenty to eat. I never was hungry. She said, well, I was. And I imagine she was. You can't believe how hard times were. Roosevelt got in there, and things began to pick up when Roosevelt got elected. Then when the war started, that's when things began to, inflation started when the war started. Franklin D. Roosevelt got to be president, and they had a lot of government projects. They had what they call a WPA, and they hired people to build roads and do all kinds of work. And they had what they called a CC camp, that the boys joined the CC camp, and they built fences and terraces and things for farmers, free of charge. And things began, when Roosevelt got in there, things began to pick up. That's when the socialism started. It never did quit. I tell you what, we live in a socialistic society now.
Everybody wants to
take the money away from those that's got it and give it to those that won't work.
Yep. Well, unfortunately, that's right.
The Bible says, there's a verse in the Bible says, if they don't eat, if they don't work, they don't eat.
Yeah. That's right. What other families do you know out here?
Huh?
What other families do you know that have been here for a long time?
What been here a long time?
What other families?
Well, the Newmans came here from Missouri, I believe. And the McCollums came here from South Carolina, I believe. And this country was full of Newmans and McCollums. And they didn't have automobiles, and they married neighbors. All of them married neighbors. And they worked on the farm, and the Depression came, and the farm couldn't make a living on the farm, so they moved to Dallas and got jobs in Dallas, and they all left the country. But it was full of Newmans and McCollums. Ernie McCollum he married a Newman, and he was the superintendent of the Pleasant Valley Methodist Church for years and years. And he worked for the road district. He was a supervisor for the road repair. And they accused him of hiring kinfolks, and the country's full of McCollums and Newmans, and he couldn't hardly hire anybody, wasn't kinfolks.
Didn't have much choice, huh? What other families do you know? The Kelso? What other families do you know from?
Well, Liberty Grove was full of Fosters. Everybody over there was Foster. And Wells, Foster and Wells. The people that came here from other states, there wasn't any crossing up at Wiley, and there wasn't any crossing at Raleigh across East Fork Bottom. The only crossing was Wells Bridge. It was a toll bridge. And this fellow Wells built the bridge, and you had to pay to come across it. Huh. And the Fosters all settled over there, and the McCollums and the Newmans settled over here, and my grandmother, the Comptons, there's a lot of Comptons, and a lot of Comptons are down at Rose Hill, kinfolks to my daddy. But my grandmother was a Compton, and this Mark Raney married the oldest Newman girl, and he walked. He was 16 years old, I believe, and he walked from, I think, Missouri. He walked and came to Texas. Can you imagine that? When he's 16 years old, he'd stop at a house and they'd let him do some work for a night's lodging and meal, and that's the way he came to Texas.
Wow, good.
And he married the oldest Newman, I think, and a cyclone blew Garland away in, I believe it was 1927. And my dad and mother and I were over there viewing the wreckage, and old man Mark Raney was talking to my daddy, and he reached down and picked up a marble and said, "Here, son, here's your souvenir." That's all I remember about old man Mark Raney.
Oh.
But he had a son named Harmon Raney, and he married a Foster over at Liberty Grove, and he lived over there. But Jim Foster is the president of the Pleasant Valley Cemetery, and his grandmother was kin to the Newmans, and his father was a Foster. His father was over there in Garland. He was a mechanic, and he was driving a 35 model Ford, and he had a 5-gallon can of gasoline in the back seat, in the back section of the old 35 Ford. Had a car wreck, and he ran into a tree and pinned him against the steering wheel, and that gasoline caught fire and burned him to death. he was a Foster. And this Jim Foster, that I've got his book over here, that's history of Pleasant Valley and Liberty Grove. I've got his book in that bookcase. And I had he's president of the cemetery, and he had a book that was everybody in the Pleasant Valley Cemetery. And I loaned it to my cousin, and she didn't bring it back. You loan somebody a book, you won't never get it back.
Where was that toll bridge you was talking about on Wells?
It was over there, East Fork Bottom. You know where Liberty Grove is.
Uh-huh.
There's a road that went down into the bottom. That was the only, it was a mud road. That was the only crossing.
Got a visitor.
And they came across that old bridge.
It's Brother Mercer.
Huh?
Hello there.
Fancy meeting you here.
Well, for goodness sake, how you doing?
Good to see you, my
Good
friend.
seeing
to see
you.
I was just recording, Mister. Come on in.
Don't you leave. I've got to leave shortly. Look at here, got pictures. What is this, big guy?
I'm getting lots of company.
Ooh, I tell you, they all come in to see you.
He's a celebrity.
Yeah. Well, you better smile for that camera.
Get one to get your picture with him.
Oh, well, I'd like that.
Can you find
I'm
a place to sit down?
I'll stand over here and I get a picture with a teenager. I don't get
Can you turn that light off, or will it turn off?
on or off.
Off. It's if you can't, that's fine. It is.
Let's see.
There you go. There. Oh yeah. There.
There you go.
Oh wow.
All right, now you smile, young man.
I don't want to show that snaggle too.
There you go.
Oh, that's neat.
Thank you.
I don't put my teeth in it. Too much trouble.
No,
I
yeah,
used to run and get my teeth put in when somebody knocked on the door. And
yeah.
I got where I lost all my pride. I don't have any
No,
pride.
you got older. Finally got old enough to get smart.
Get that chair over
But no,
there.
I won't. You're busy.
Pull that chair
I
back
just
over
wanted
there
to
and
come
sit
out and
down.
say howdy to you.
We're just talking. Here, just.
I saw a friend of yours a while ago.
Huh?
I saw a friend of yours a while ago.
So what?
A friend,
Who?
McCarty.
Huh?
Old man McCarty. McCarty.
McCarter?
Yeah, McCarty.
You see him?
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
He's where you might want to go someday.
Huh?
If you get old enough, you might go to one of those places.
He's old enough to draw Social Security.
Yes, he is. Let's see, I've forgotten. He's 80.
He's a pretty good doctor.
Yeah.
Stan.
Well, now that's his son. I met his dad. I went to see his dad.
Oh, you want to see his dad?
Yeah.
Well, his dad is getting a little bad. Mine get a little bad, isn't it?
Yeah, excepting today I was surprised. Now I'm gonna leave in 4 or 5 minutes, so I won't keep. Today I saw he's in his home right down here, Pleasant Valley
On
nursing
Pleasant
home.
Valley, yeah.
And he's lost 30 pounds,
Well, I'll be dog.
and he really looks good. He knew everything, recited the Lord's Prayer, and this guy is the smartest. I've never seen anybody who has memorized the entire Bible, and he has.
Wow.
I tried to trick him through the years. I've tried to find something in the scripture, and trick. He said, well, no, that's not quite right. That's not what it says. Yeah, Benny's a nice guy. Benny comes to see you every once in a while, doesn't he?
I've forgot it more than I ever knew.
That's good.
I can't see how to read. I got that big Bible there. It's got big print, but I can't see how to read it.
Yeah.
I can't read anymore. And I cook. I do my cooking. I pour the measuring cup to pour my coffee. I just pour it till it runs over.
Hey, that's a good sermon illustration. I'll use that Sunday.
Huh?
I'll use that as a sermon illustration Sunday. That you know, you have a measuring cup, but then you just pour it till, excuse me, pour it till it runs over and it's full. That's a full cup. That's a good idea. I'll use that.
I eat
How you been?
oatmeal. I eat oatmeal, and since I had that heart bypass, I cut down on my. See, I was raised up on cholesterol.
Yeah.
See, we had hog lard. We didn't have any shortening. We had hog lard,
Yeah.
and we had the ham. We'd hang those hams up. We'd have ham. Have everything was cholesterol.
Yeah.
If cholesterol had killed you, I'd have been dead a long time ago.
Maybe. God God, nobody knows.
Since I had that heart attack, I eat oatmeal a whole lot,
Yeah.
malted meal, and pancakes.
But now if you'd have stayed with that woman, instead of being nice and leaving her, you'd have had somebody taking care of you.
Well,
Well,
I tell you what,
now he ought to get this picture in he ought to get your picture in the Sachse paper.
huh?
Probably will. Probably will. That's why I'm working on
There
that.
you
Well,
go.
we're doing this for the historical society like we did at the church, you know.
Really? Yeah.
And I've been meaning to come by here for a long time. And my brother, is it Chris, the pastor at the church now? He asked the other day if it'd be all right. I want to make sure it's all right before I just dropped in, you know. And he's, oh yeah, come on.
Oh,
We've been
yeah.
talking for a while.
Yeah.
Just
Good.
me.
Good. Well, he does. That's great. The only thing is, he ought to move into one of those nursing homes, and he would have a Bible study in that nursing home. He really would. He
Yeah.
is knowledgeable in this. But he won't listen. He won't listen to anybody except Stan. Now, Stan, he listens to, right?
I tell you, I don't know what I'd do if I didn't have Stan.
Yeah,
Stan takes care of me,
yeah.
and he doesn't work. That's all he got to do. But,
You know
Now,
Stan.
he lives up here on the corner,
Right
doesn't
on the
he?
corner.
Yeah.
well, that other than this, I tell you what, he's almost a genius when it comes to mechanical things. He builds, he used to race cars. I don't think he races cars anymore, but he's got a son that does.
Oh, I see him.
Brian, he races cars. But he builds transmissions and motors for race cars.
Is that right?
Steve does. And my car quit running, needed a fuel pump. You have to take the carburetor off. He came up here yesterday and put it in a trailer and took it down to where he lives and going to fix my car. I can't drive it.
I was gonna say, you can't drive it. Why do you want it fixed?
But he's gonna fix it.
Yeah, he's good.
I'm gonna give it to him.
Good.
But the reason I don't want to keep it here, these old thieves, when they see there ain't a car here, they'll think the house is empty.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you need something out here to show.
You know, I had a 20 gauge Savage shotgun that I've had for years,
They came in there and took that.
and these old doors won't shut. And up one day I looked and I said, where's my shotgun? And I got to looking and somebody come in here and took my shotgun.
Yep.
And there's a jar of change. When I emptied my pockets, I just put that change, and it was about $20 worth of money in that jar right by that shotgun. They didn't take that money. If it had been a regular thief, he'd have took that money. Somebody that knows me came in here and got that shotgun. I think I know who he is, but I can't accuse him because I can't prove it.
Yeah.
But I think he stole it. and he's been stealing stuff out of my garage. I've been missing stuff out of my garage.
Yeah.
I think he's the one getting that stuff out of my garage.
Yeah.
I tell you, I hate a thief. I hate a thief.
Yeah. How's things at the Historical Society?
Well, doing good, doing good. We having our meeting again tomorrow every month. You know, we have one, and we got it. We did a bunch of renovation work up there. You were visiting. You've been there, and
Oh, yeah.
the EDC gave us a grant. We took a wall out, added a little building outside, and put a bunch of more stuff in there. So if you're out and about
Oh,
sometime,
really?
like for you to see it, you know, and you're welcome to come to meetings. We have a meeting in
Well, I'd like to. You know, I'm
You're
not
out.
at Powell Valley anymore. I took a little church up in McKinney, and trying to get it rolling.
I got a book in that library written by the president of the cemetery,
Yeah.
Jim Foster.
Jim Foster.
It's a history of Pleasant Valley and Liberty Grove.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of stuff in it.
Yeah. I've have you seen that one?
I think I've seen it.
Yeah.
I think he should. I think
His
I've seen it.
grandmother
That is a good book.
played the piano at the
That's
church. She went to the
Valley, yeah.
church
That's right.
being married. Did you ever hear of her?
I did only from you. I heard you talked about her.
Her father was the superintendent of the Sunday school for about 30 years. Pard Pelton.
Yeah, and you always sat on the back row.
He lived over at Liberty Grove. He was a farmer over there.
Yeah. Well, good.
There's a lot of Peltons over at Liberty Grove. He had a brother.
Now, how long have you lived in this area?
Huh?
You lived in this area a long time. How many years?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I've lived here all my life.
Because you used to drive a Model A when that's
Except I was born in,
one-lane highway.
I
or
was born
street.
in Lampasas, but she went down there to have me. We didn't live down there.
Yeah,
We
no.
might have stayed down there a year.
Was that a Model T or a Model A that you drove from Garland out here?
Huh?
Was that a Model A or a Model T that you drove from Garland out
I
here?
drove a 23 model Star
A
when
Star.
I was 11 years old.
Isn't that
I
something?
drove down this road here, Pleasant Valley Road.
That is something.
You didn't have to have a driver's license.
Isn't that
Didn't have to have any insurance, any inspection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I drove a 23 model Star down that road, 11 years old.
So that'd been in 26. He was born in 15. That'd been 1926, I guess.
Yeah, that's right.
I guess.
My daddy
That's right.
didn't have a car, and on Saturday he'd stand out by the side of the road and somebody'd come along and he'd catch a ride to Garland. Well, he come out one day and they couldn't catch a ride. He said, if I ever get to Garland, I'm going to buy me a car. And when he came home, he didn't know how to drive, and a fellow named Jim Beaver that married one of the Newmans.
I knew the Newmans, but I didn't know Beaver.
He drove it home for my daddy, a Hupmobile. And my dad, that's the first car he bought, was a Hupmobile. And like I told him, it didn't have a starter or a battery. You had to crank it
Crank out front.
with a magneto.
Yeah, I used to like to make those backfire, pop.
I go back to a long time.
Yeah.
I'll
pretty
go
good.
back when you didn't have any electricity, you didn't have any gas. If you had heat, you had wood or kerosene.
Yeah.
That's what you had to have. You washed in a wash tub on a rub board.
See, you make me feel young.
Huh?
You make me feel like a boy.
You ought to have been brought up when I was. Time, you don't know how hard times was.
Well, you don't know how old I am.
There was a colored man who lived across the
You
creek
didn't care how
over
old I
there.
am.
And he worked for this colored man worked on the farm, and there wasn't any work to do in the wintertime hardly, and he pretty good family, and he would catch rabbits, and when the cool weather got here, he'd catch rabbits and salt them down in a barrel and eat them in the wintertime.
Is that right?
Can
That's a
you
long time ago.
Can you imagine that?
Yep. Yeah. Well, I'm on leave because I didn't know you had a photographer here and everything.
Did you ever eat a rabbit?
Oh yes.
Huh?
Yeah.
You
sure.
eat a rabbit?
Oh yeah. See, I'm from Indiana originally, and I'm 80 years old.
You're what?
80?
80?
Yeah.
You're a young man.
Yeah.
You're
20 years younger.
You're 20 years younger than I am.
Yeah, I know. That's the reason I come over here to see you, because you pepped me up.
The law, the Ten Commandments says, honor your father and mother that your days may be long on the land the Lord thy God giveth thee. I guess I honored my mother and father.
Yeah, I think so.
That's the reason I live so long.
Or they don't want you back. No, that's good. You're great. That is super. I'll call old Stan and tell him you appreciate him.
Well, he's due to call me. He was going to take me to get a haircut. I said, wait till it warms up a little bit. And he hadn't called me. Something might have happened to him. He's had some health problems.
Really? Well, you do need a haircut on top.
Huh?
You need a haircut on top.
Well, they charge you just as much for hunting it as they do for cutting it.
He never runs out of gas.
That's pretty good.
He really is. I enjoy it. It's just, he's a good man. You're a good man in spite of yourself.
Now, the Bible says there's none good but God.
Well, okay. But we gotta try. Good seeing you
It's good to
again.
see you too, man.
I tell you, that's good. I'm glad you're doing this. That'll
I'll probably go do it in section, been here for a couple of hours. It's enjoyable to listen. And that's just he is.
Oh, that's good.
Alert.
That's good. He's gonna take a picture. Now you do your hair up nice so he can take a good picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we got some pictures a while ago, and I'm glad you got to stop by and got in on it. I enjoyed getting a visit with you over to church.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's good seeing you.
Good to see you.
Take care. We'll see you now.
Okay.
Now
You
don't.
still up at Chambersville?
Yeah. Still up Chambersville.
They're letting you stay, huh?
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get out of it. To be honest with you. But
stay with them.
they say I'm next to nothing and they like nothing.
Preach the gospel.
Okay. All right, buddy. We'll see you.
Okay.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
That's a fine feller.
He is out.
I tell you, you can't beat him. I don't know what kind of preacher he is, but he sure is a nice guy.
Yeah, I got to meet him at the church when he was there and visit with him some. It was very nice, very good. Well, I'm gonna get out of your hair.
Huh?
I'm gonna leave here pretty soon. I may come back sometime and talk to you some more if that's all right. I'm gonna go,
Okay.
but I may come back again sometime
Okay.
if you don't mind.
That's all right. Okay.
I've enjoyed visiting with you.
Well, I'm full of bull.
Well, it's good to hear about the community, and there's no one else has lived here anywhere close as long as you have. Did you know any of the Sachse
You
family?
know, when you get old, you live in the past. You can't do anything. You have to go back to the old days. I get to, a lot of times I have a hard time getting to sleep, and I'll get to counting things back in the old days, and counting things that happened back years ago, and that's the way I get to sleep.
Well,
I've had There's you. Well, I've been lucky. The Lord let me make a living out of something I like to do. Now, you know, when you think about somebody that has to punch a clock 8 hours a day all their life, that's kind of dull. I know people that clerked in a store all their life. And I'm glad I didn't have to do that.
Yeah.
The Lord has blessed me. I could tell you the miracles that's happened in my life. You can't believe the miracles that in my 100 years that's happened.
Huh.
The old preacher that comes, Brother Chris, I told him about the miracle, and I've tried to tell him a miracle every time he comes. I bore him with the miracle. But I've had miracles after miracles. It's a miracle I live to be 100 years old.
Well, you're doing incredibly well, I tell you. That's amazing. Did you know any of the Sachse family?
Huh?
Did you know any of the Sachse family?
Sachse family.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I knew about all of us. I remember when Sachse had 2 stores. Dave Razor and Old Man Wynn. That's 2 stores, that's what Sachse had. And Old Man Wynn was, he was eccentric. He had a little old store, and a truck had come up to get air, and he'd run out there and say, "We don't furnish air for trucks." And there'd be people in there cold weather sitting there talking and visiting, and a salesman had come up that he bought his groceries from wholesale, and he'd say, "You fellas will have to step outside. We're going to transact some business." He'd make them go outside.
Huh.
He was a sight. Dave Razor had the other store, and he married a Skinner, and Guy Skinner married a Sachse. He married Jimmy Lee Sachse. And he ran a store later on, and then he got to be manager of a Kroger. He was a manager of a Garland Kroger store, Guy Skinner. He had a farm up there that he inherited from his brother. And I baled his hay. I baled hay for years for him. He had those Santa Gertrudis cattle, big old cattle. And Guy was a fine fella, a real fine fella. But old man Jake Sachse, when I was I guess I was about 20 years old, I guess. The government had restrictions on how much cotton you could plant. Everybody raised cotton in this country. That's all they raised. And I measured land for the government. I got $3 a day for measuring land for the government. And I measured old man Jack Sachse. He was a big fella and had a big belly. He drove a Dodge car that had a steering wheel. I've never seen one of them. They got tilt steering wheels now, but he drove a touring car. Back in those days, all the cars they didn't have closed cars. They had tops. They had cloth tops. He drove this Dodge, and you could raise the steering wheel up. And he'd raise that steering wheel up and get that big belly in there. And I measured his land. And that road that goes from Murphy to, what do they go, Murphy to Wiley? What's the name of that? It's
544.
highway. It's a farm to market road.
544.
I measured his land, and it came from that road up there at Murphy all the way down to Sachse Road. That's how much land he owned. I imagine over 1,000 acres of land. I measured that land. He was rich. Here's the old man Sachse, the original Sachse, I can't think of his name. He came here from Prussia. Emigrated from Prussia. He came to Pleasant Valley, and then he went and bought land up at Sachse. And you know, there wasn't any place you could buy supplies. The closest place you could buy supplies was Paris, Texas. They had to go on wagons to Paris, Texas to buy supplies. It was primitive. And there was a post office in the Pleasant Valley store. My grandfather McClain ran the store and the post office. And they brought the post office, a postman on a horse. He got the mail up there about Sachse or somewhere up there. It came on a train, and he'd bring the mail to these little all the little rural stores is where they didn't have a carrier. They came and got their mail at the store.
Huh.
They came and got the mail at the store. And my grandfather McClain, I heard my grandmother tell about my grandfather McClain. He had one of her nephews, a Compton. He got the mail and brought it to Pleasant Valley on a horse. And he came in one day carrying the saddle. He got in a poker game and lost the horse. And my grandfather bought him another horse and put him back on the mail route. But the old man Sachse was rich.
William Sachse was, I think, did you know William Sachse? Were you here? William Sachse, he was the first.
Who?
William Sachse?
William Sachse. William Sachse, I believe, was the old man that came here from Prussia.
Yeah.
Yeah, William Sachse.
Did you ever meet him?
Huh?
Did you ever meet him?
No, he dead before I was born. But old man Dick Sachse was a lot older. He was an old man when I was young. He had I don't remember who his kids were, but Sachse was full of Sachse, a bunch of them. And I had my cousin, my daddy's sister, her youngest son, girl, Janice, married a Sachse. And they lived out in Gladstone, New Mexico. That's a God-forsaken country out there. And he was I believe he ran the post office, and Gladstone was a little place. and he ran the post office out there. And he was a musician. He had a band, and they played music around for dances and things like that. His name was D.C. Sachse. I never met him. But there was one of those Sachse boys was an alcoholic, Charlie Sachse. He was an alcoholic. But most of them were good people. I went to school with one. His name was Happy. His nickname was Happy Sachse. But the Rowlett was just a wide place in the road back when I was a kid. Wasn't any, about 2 stores down there. But they had a little post office. They had them post offices all around.
Well, Mr. McClain, I'm gonna have to go.
Huh?
I'm gonna have to go.
Okay.
I will come
well,
back again, though. I'd like to visit with you some more,
Well,
if you don't mind. And where was your chair?
huh?
Where was the chair?
That chair, just set it down there. That's all right, right there. That's all right.
I couldn't.
I don't try to keep house anymore. I just let things go.
Well. I appreciate you letting me come by.
I've sure got a church across the road.
Yeah, that's something in it.
I tell you what, some of those women come to see me. They bring me food.
Oh,
They're
yeah?
sure nice.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, they're nice. Well, I tell you what, I don't. They're religious people. I'm not crazy about the kind of religion they got, but they pay money in. They tithe. That's the reason they could build that church. I told that guy I want to get my mail, and a guy came over there and talked to me, and I said, I bet that thing cost $2 million. He said, how about $9 million? $9 million. Where in the world did they get $9 million? But the woman that comes to see me that belongs over there and bring me food, she said they had 1,200 members.
Probably so.
That's a whole lot of people.
Yeah, it's they got a lot of folks over there. They really do. Can I get a picture of you in front of this?
Huh?
Can I get a picture of you standing here in front of this?
Get a picture of what?
Of you standing over here?
Me standing
Yes,
over there?
would you mind? I'd like to.
My legs are give out. They're played out.
I'd like a good picture right there.
Is this about right?
That is perfect. That is perfect. Let's get a couple of shots here. Thank you.
I had a camera made in Germany that took three-dimensional pictures. Did you ever see one of those?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah. 3D.
You looked at them through a viewer. Boy, that
That's
took
pretty
the
neat.
best pictures that you ever saw.
Looked like his.
You just like you're standing here. It was just like alive.
Amazing.
I took a lot of pictures of them. My nephews got the pictures of it. You look through them, they're three-dimensional.
Yeah, look at the viewer.
It was made in, I still got it. It was made in Germany. It took the best pictures I ever saw in my life.
Huh.
You just looked like you could reach out and touch them.